In the meeting this morning. If we do it quickly, we can do it before Mike Boyle gets down here. This meeting will be conducted in compliance with Nebraska's open meeting laws, a copy of which is on the back wall. And I think we will start with attendance. Do you have anybody to call attendance for you? Do you have your clerk here or anything?
Our clerk's online.
He's on, okay, fine. Let's start with the attendance if we might.
Yeah, let me make sure she's unmuted. Okay. All right.
For Washington County, Jordan Rochelle,
Here.
Lisa Kramer,
Here.
Bob Fromm,
Here.
Steve Detless,
Yes.
Kevin Barnhill,
Here.
Jay Anderson,
Here.
Steve Kruger,
Present.
6 of 7.
Okay, for Douglas
Commissioner
County,
Bork.
Commissioner Borgeson.
Here.
Commissioner Boyle.
Here.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Here.
Commissioner Kraft.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan. Looks like Commissioner Morgan is absent. Commissioner Rogers. And Mr. Chair.
Present.
All right.
Thank you. We have one item on our agenda this morning, and this is a public hearing to determine whether the proposed conversion of Bennington Rural Fire District to a suburban fire district is suited to the general fire protection of Douglas and Washington County, each as a whole, and make a written order of such determination per Nebraska statute. Is there anybody present? We'll start from the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address this group during this public hearing? Just a lawyer.
We did officially open the public hearing.
Thank you. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, board members. My name is Jim Lang, 8526 F Street. I'm an attorney for the Bennington Rural Fire Protection District. First of all, we want to thank the Board of Supervisors of Washington County for making the trip here today. We know that's not the most convenient thing, but we really appreciate it. It's very important for our fire district to have you here. So once again, we really, really appreciate you coming here. Barb Sullivan, the county clerk for Washington County, has been great at assisting us in setting up this meeting and coordinating this. So we want to thank her as well, even though she's not here. So once again, really appreciate you being here in this very important meeting. We also appreciate the Board of Commissioners of Douglas County meeting with us today in a joint meeting. Kind of an unusual situation where a statute on the conversion from the rural to a suburban requires a joint meeting of the two boards to be present at the same time, but that's how the statute reads, and so that's why we're here. Also with me today is Jim Gotch from the Bennington Rural Fire District. Jim's the president of the board of directors of our district. The purpose for our meeting today is to obtain an order from the two joint boards determining that it's in the best interest of for fire and rescue services for both counties to permit the Bennington Rural Fire District to convert from a rural fire protection district to a suburban fire protection district. Now, under the statute, there's not a lot of difference. We have two conditions relative to valuation and population, which we have certified and met. The reason for us going forward and asking to go from a rural to a suburban is that the activity at the Bennington Rural Fire Protection District, as far as our call base goes, has increased substantially. 2015, I think we were like 650 calls. Right now, we're at 934 calls in 2019, and we're getting to that 1,000 calls within the next few years. We have 34 volunteers. Our volunteers are getting spread pretty thin with the call bases. So we're at a position where we need to go to a paid combination fire district of a paid personnel and volunteers. Now, the volunteers are an integral part of this transition and the combination. Our volunteer fire chief and volunteer assistant fire chief from the Bennington Fire District has pushed us very hard, the board very hard, to transition into a suburban district so we can hire paid personnel to assist the volunteers in responding to the fire and rescue calls. So the first thing in our plan would be, if the boards would agree that we can convert to a suburban, would be to hire a paid fire chief. And then the paid fire chief would be in a position to hire additional personnel, including paramedics, and the thought is in the next 2 years, we would probably have, if this would go through, paid personnel of about 8 individuals, including the paid fire chief, which would include paramedics, and that they would be there on a rotation for full-time basis, along with the support and assistance of the volunteers. A lot of this is going to be up to the paid fire chief once he gets into the position and implements the combination fire district. One of the other reasons that we're asking for converting to a suburban is the way the budget law is. Right now, we have on our operating fund, as we know, we have our lid situation. Upon conversion to a suburban district, the auditor is going to permit us to raise our operating levy for the first year, and then our lid comes on. And this would permit us to fund the paid personnel as we go forward. Right now, we have the lowest operating budget levy in Douglas County compared to other fire districts at 1.3. Now, we'll probably look at raising this, if this is successful, to probably 5 cents. So that'll put us at about 6.3 in the operating fund, which would put us in about the middle area of the, for operating funds of the fire districts in Douglas County. I did not compare it to the fire districts in Washington County. So what we're asking the board here today, or the joint board, is to go ahead and find that it is in the best interest of both counties from a fire and rescue standpoint to convert from a rural to a suburban district and enter an order permitting us to do so. Right now, I'd like to have Jim Gotch, our president, come up and say a few words and explain further why this is necessary for our fire district. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Jim isn't jumping up. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, everybody.
Thanks for coming down.
Nice to see everybody. Thanks, everybody, for taking time out of your day coming down here. My name's Jim Gotch. I've been on the rural board in the Bennington Fire District for between 25 and 30 years. When I got on, it was a little bit of town and a lot of farm. Now it's a lot of town and not so much farm anymore. That's progress, I guess. We're lucky enough to have a group of our firefighter EMTs that are in the gray hair age. That are, Bennington's, it's a bedroom community. Everybody gets up in the morning and goes someplace else to go to work. These people, there's a lot of people, half a dozen or so that are mostly retired and are around to cover the calls in the daytime hours. When I was a kid at Bennington grade school, these were the big kids. Now they're the old kids. So they're getting stretched pretty thin. 2-3 calls a day. It's not every day, but there's more often than not, they get at least 2 a day. Again, 904 calls last year. Who knows where we'll end up this year. But it's a big responsibility that we all have to make sure, and we're approaching almost 20,000 citizens in our fire district, in that 42 square miles, 6 of them in Washington County. It's a big responsibility for us and them to make sure that we have adequate fire rescue service when it's needed. That's pretty much in a nutshell what I got to say. So we're asking for your consideration to allow us to do this. And we've always try to be really loyal to the taxpayers and only do what we need to do. I know we built a new fire station about 5 or 6 years ago in preparation of this. If we'd have waited, that building would cost us $3 or $4 million more now. So we prepared a little while ago, and we've kind of waited as long as we think we can. First choice is first option is to hire a fire chief. We hope to do that this year. So again, thanks for your time. We appreciate your consideration. Allow us to do this. Thank y'all.
I wish you well with the transition. I've watched a few other departments go through the transition from volunteer to combination paid and then fully paid, and it's kind of a tough transition as a rule. I wish you well with it, but it also seems inevitable. I was listening yesterday. Bennington had a call for CPR in progress, and they rolled with 2 people and no paramedic. Mutual Aid at Irvington, who was out on another call at the same time. We really are stretching the volunteers pretty thin. I noticed you looked at me when you talked about how gray they're getting, which is true. I've been on 44 years on Ponca Hills, and I'm kind of typical. I mean, the volunteer fire.
Claire,
departments
can you
are-
talk into the mic?
Thank you, Mark. Excuse me. And Dan reminded us of the importance of talking into the mics. I apologize for that. Bennington is, of course, experiencing huge growth. Your fire, I don't know how old your department is. I remember your centennial a long time ago. So, I mean, I know.
The fire district was founded in 1962. That's when it became a rural district.
Okay, but the fire department has been around for well over 100 years.
Yes.
The Bennington Fire
Yes,
Department.
yes, volunteer fire department.
They were one of the first
In fact,
in
we
the
have the
area.
original hose reel.
Yes, yeah, Irvington, Ponca Hills, these are latecomers. La Vista didn't even exist 50 years ago. I mean, there's a lot of latecomers, but we do still have 7 active volunteer fire departments in Douglas County, and the services that are provided are critical, are important. I've kind of resented listening to Mayor Stothard a couple times in our press conference talk about how Omaha Fire provides protection for 100% of the county. And I'm sitting next to her saying,
Excuse me.
remember, you have 19,000 people in your district.
Right.
I mean, and Irvington isn't too far behind, and their number of calls is keeping up with you. They may face, and of course, they just built a second station, which they haven't staffed yet. It isn't in service yet, but the growth in these departments and keeping them staffed is a real challenge, and it is so important. I'm sorry for what this does to the taxes, but it has to happen. The shortest speech I've ever given was to a group of volunteer firefighters when I said there's only one bargain on your property tax statement, and that's the volunteer fire departments. And now yours is inevitably going to have to go up, but you recognize the need, the importance, and this should be a local decision.
Right.
It should be coming from you.
And
it is.
we intend to keep the volunteers on board as long as they want.
Very good, very good, as well you should. This is a public hearing. Would anybody else?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming down, Jim. Is there anybody else that would like to speak during this public hearing? Anybody from the Washington County Board want to say anything? No. Okay,
Mr. Duda, this is the Kramer.
go ahead.
My first question is for you, and that is, given that the Bennington Fire District sits in your district primarily, I'm curious whether you reached out to your tax base, and if so, what kind of feedback you received from the taxpayers in your district.
I have not received any feedback.
Did you reach out?
No. No, I have not. I'm not sure just how I would. I didn't know just what the change would be, but I'm not, anyhow, I mean, this is a locally driven decision coming from your fire board and your locality, and so no, I have not gone out seeking opinions.
So I am the only sitting county board supervisor or commissioner out of this group that lives in the Bennington Fire District. So every one of us, every one of the 14 of us represents me as an individual that resides in that district. So I want you to be mindful of your duty as a representative that is the budget authority for this Bennington Rural Fire District. You're currently the budget authority for the rural district, and if this passes and they transition to a suburban district, you as a board, just Douglas County, is the sole budget authority for that Bennington Fire District. So you will still have to represent the people, but you're representing people that don't have the ability to vote for you. Okay? So as a member of the district for Bennington Fire, I did reach out. And the way that you do that is by talking to the people. I put it out on my Facebook page multiple times to gain insights from my constituents and other people in the Bennington Rural Fire District. And overwhelmingly, what people told me, first off, was that they knew this was coming and they believe that it is probably time, that it is probably necessary. We are very, very fortunate to have an incredible pool of volunteers, with some of the paramedics on our department who have volunteered for 30, 40, and 50 years. And that was overwhelmingly spoken to me by the tax base, by the constituents that we collectively represent. So that was the first and most important thing that people told me, is how fortunate we are to have that pool of candidates that are willing to volunteer and dedicate so much of their time. The second thing that people told me is that they had absolutely no idea that this was taking place. There was zero transparency in the process, although most people expected it, knowing that they built the largest and most expensive fire station in the state of Nebraska that included living quarters. Most people expected that this would be coming, but nobody knew, not a single person. 100% of the people that I spoke to that were not members of the volunteer fire department had no idea that their tax base would go up 10%. As a county, we can levy up to 50 cents. This 5-cent increase represents 10% of the county's taxing authority. That's significant, and that is significant enough that the route that people believe they should have taken in order to get permission to transition to a suburban district is to have made it a vote of the people. There was an election, a primary election, just 1 month ago. The Rural Fire Board could have opted to place this issue on their ballot and actually make their case to the people and represent the people and justify the need. And I believe they would have received overwhelming support. I honestly do, based on the input I've received from my taxpayers in my district. But they didn't do that. Instead, they had a rural fire board meeting where they had 17 people in attendance. And if I were to hazard a guess, I would guess that the majority of those in attendance were rural fire board volunteers, or rural fire department volunteers, excuse me. That doesn't reflect well on the transparency of the process. It doesn't change necessarily the need, but it does reflect poorly on the process. And you, as the sole commissioner for the Douglas County portion of their Bennington Fire District, I believe you have a duty to seek out that information and those viewpoints from your constituents before you make a decision. And that's why I'm sharing it with you based on my perspective as one of those constituents on the Washington side.
Thank you, Lisa.
So I intend fully to vote in favor of this conversion, but I implore the Douglas County Board of Commissioners to be mindful of their duty as representatives and to utilize their fiduciary responsibility to hold the feet to the fire for this Bennington Rural Fire District. They have the best and the best facilities and the best equipment that they can have. You will not see a fire station like that throughout Omaha Fire Department. You will not see the amount of equipment throughout many of the Omaha Fire departments. So Bennington has had a really good opportunity to draw volunteers to their department by purchasing on the backs of the taxpayers excellent equipment and excellent facilities that we're still paying for. So because we don't have the opportunity to vote for you as Douglas County board members when we reside in Washington County, I implore you to use your fiduciary responsibility to be very involved in the budget process for this department moving forward to make sure that they are using our tax dollars wisely.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Other comments? Would anybody else wish to speak during this public hearing? I don't know. Make sure your red light is on when you speak and speak into your microphones. Beyond that, good luck.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out which one it is. Thanks for the tip. I wanted to welcome our colleagues from Washington County. We're glad to have you here. This sounds like a good proposal. I also want to welcome Jim Lang, a colleague for many years who's had the great good taste to marry a Kavanaugh, and it's good to see you, Jim. I am interested in this because I think it's forward-looking, recognizing the future development of Bennington. As you indicated, it's been explosive, and I don't think it's going to slow down. We look forward to it being a vital part of our community. And I'm also interested in what Ms. Lawton said relative to, having a vote on things. Presumably, going forward, there would be some public input, particularly on any mill levy increases that would affect property tax payers, but that's a discussion we can have going forward. Today, I think what we have before us is something that we should probably act upon and get in place, and then observe what Ms. Lawton pointed out in terms of due diligence in terms of our fiscal oversight of how these monies are expended. I mean, it's a key component of any community to have firefighters. I come from a family of firefighters, and I know how important that is, and it's important that they are well supported using our public resources, and I think this is a responsible use of those. That said, we have a duty to oversee expenditures, particularly of property tax dollars, and protect our property owners as much as we can. So I think those are well-raised points relative to public input, and certainly, a vote whenever possible is something that, we should have, and I've long advocated. So thanks for bringing this. I think it's a good idea today. I think we should act upon it today. I don't know if we are in the position to do a motion, but I'd be happy to make that motion if we are.
After we close the public hearing.
Okay?
Yep. Okay. Any other input during this public hearing? If not, we will close the public hearing. This
Dan,
doesn't-
Clerk Ash, if I may.
Please.
After talking with our legal counsel, and I don't know if Clerk Sullivan has any input, but I think we were thinking that we do a motion and second from both boards. So we can let our guests vote first, then we can vote after that. But we were going to do
It would seem appropriate to have two separate votes, one from each board. If there is no other public input, we will close this public hearing. And if you guys want to go first.
Yep. You have a motion? We have a motion, we have a second.
All I've done is close the public hearing. The motion's got to come from you.
Okay. On behalf of the Washington County Supervisor.
Steve, if I could ask, come on up and speak into the microphone.
On behalf of the Washington County Supervisors, we will make a motion to support the movement from Bennington Rural to Bennington Suburban Fire District.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second from the Washington County Board?
I will second Lisa Kramer.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay.
real quick. May I get the Steve, or what's your last name? I'm sorry.
Detlef.
Thank you.
D-E-T-H-L-E-F-S.
Thank you.
Now, will we take their vote or they take their vote?
Yeah,
Okay.
Clerk Sullivan's on the
Fine.
Zoom call.
Fine. Okay, very good.
Ready for roll call?
Roll call.
Jordan Rochelle?
Yes.
Lisa Kramer?
Yes.
Steve Detless?
Yes.
Kevin Barnhill?
Yes.
Jay Anderson?
Yes.
Steve Kruger?
Yes.
6 members voting aye, motion carried.
Barb, you skip Bob.
Oh, I didn't hear him, he is there, I didn't hear him present. Okay, sorry. Bob Fromm.
Yes.
7 members voting aye, motion carried.
Thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh, did you wish to make a motion?
Yes, I'd move the same resolution be adopted by the Douglas County Board of Commissioners.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there are no questions or comments, Mr. Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Yep, and we'll do a voice vote as well. So
Okay.
motion by Commissioner Kavanaugh, second by Commissioner Rogers. Commissioner Borgeson? Commissioner Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Kavanaugh? Commissioner Kraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan, did you join us, Commissioner Morgan? He is still absent. Commissioner Rogers? And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. I would point out, to keep the attorneys happy, we had a quorum physically present of both boards, and there were enough votes for the prevailing side physically present. So it doesn't matter whether Zoom laws are legal or not, we're legal.
Mr. Chair, if I may, you may very well mention it, but I don't want to assume. We did have the Opens Meeting Act is present in this room.
I actually remembered this.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, there being no further action, I thank the Washington County Board for coming down for a matter of mutual interest here. Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor can signify by leaving. Those opposed can stay. Thank you all for a nice meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah.
Good to see you from God's country.
In about 5 minutes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, guys. Lots of success. Keep it up.
Hey, thank you very much. Are you, anybody in the
It is a few minutes after 9. Sorry about that. We do have a quorum present. We are going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This meeting will be conducted in compliance with Nebraska's open meeting laws, a copy of which is on the back wall. And I would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if we may. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you all. We will go ahead and start with the roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson, Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Kraft. I do see him there.
He is here.
So,
He's muted.
Commissioner Morgan is absent. Commissioner Rogers. And Mr. Chair.
Present. Thank you. We first convene as the Board of Equalization. The item A is approval of the minutes from last week's meeting. Item B is to set next week as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections. What is the pleasure of the board?
And I
Commissioner Kraft?
didn't, my name hold.
What do you say? We're voting on A and B on Board of Equalization. Okay, if there are no questions or comments,
Yes.
could we please vote?
That's motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioners Kavanaugh and Rogers, please.
Vote yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Clerk, the two things here, one is lit up and it's not doing anything, the other one is just lit up and it has a plus and a 0 and a minus. Is that the one that I vote on?
I'll come back and
I could just,
I could do your voice vote. You just want to vote yes?
I just want to see if this actually works. I mean, is that a vote?
Okay, there we go. Yeah, that came through.
Okay.
All
This
right,
one
motion
is lit up
passes
and
6-0.
Thank you. Citizen comments. Would anybody like to address the Board of Equalization on anything not on the agenda? If not, we have Resolution D and adjournment for consideration. Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Borgeson. Questions or comments? Then could we please vote?
Commissioner Kraft, you did vote yes, correct?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We will now convene as a Board of Commissioners. Could we please have the roll call again?
Yes.
Commissioner Borgeson, Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Can you hear me or?
Yes, we can hear you now, Commissioner Kraft. I'm up. Commissioner Kraft is present. Commissioner Morgan is absent. Commissioner Rogers. And Mr. Chair.
Present. Thank you. Minutes and claims. Commissioner Kraft?
People are cutting out.
Yeah, you're cutting out too. Okay. The first item for consideration is minutes and claims, items A and B. Questions or comments? Could we please vote?
Motion by Commissioner Borgeson, second by Commissioner Boyle. And there we go.
I vote yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. This brings us then to the consent agenda. Although item C, I know we're going to want to have some discussion on. I guess I would say let's pull item C out for individual attention if we might. Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, I have to abstain on item.
A.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to, just so we can have discussion on it.
Item C.
Okay, we have a motion to approve less item C.
Can you do less item A too?
Are you okay with also?
Yes.
Less items A and C?
It's just simpler.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Pulling A and C off, is that correct? For
Yes.
discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we'll still get to them. We're
Sure,
just
sure.
not taking them in this motion.
And Commissioner Boyle is abstaining on which one?
On item A.
A1.
A1, he would like to abstain.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the consent agenda other than items A and C. If our.
Who was the second? I didn't hear that.
I was.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I just got to adjust the agenda here. Give me a moment, please.
You miss Ellen's flying fingers.
We do.
I vote
Okay, thank you.
And you cut out Commissioner Kraft. You're voting yes, Commissioner Kraft?
say that. The sound keeps cutting out, Claire. And so I'm not sure if I'm heard or I can't hear most of the words.
We're hearing you
say.
now. Are you voting yes, Mark? Okay.
Commissioner Kraft, I'll count you as a yes, but just correct me later on. I'm going to check once we get off start the discussion on the next item, I'll go up to the computer and see if there's something going on with the Zoom that's making it difficult for people to speak or hear. So motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Let's come back then to item A, bid acceptances.
The reason I'm abstaining is I have a legal client relationship with Omni Engineering.
Then I would suggest you not give it a second, if I might. Thank you. We have a motion and a second for item A from Commissioners Borgeson and Rogers. Could we please vote?
Commissioner Kraft, I assume you're voting yes, Commissioner Kraft? Okay, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Dan, it's several people on there.
Yes.
It's technical. It might be people not muting their phones on the other side.
I apologize. I need to correct myself on that last vote. It was 5 voting yes, and Commissioner Boyle abstained.
Thank you.
Mark Kraft, can you hear okay now? Mark, can you hear?
It's okay if we can't hear.
Yes, much better.
Okay, thank you.
Much better.
Okay.
I call Karen Cole our resident teenager because she knows all the IT stuff.
Okay. I think it's better.
Thank you, Karen. We move next to item C, resolution approving Douglas County becoming a party to the state of Nebraska contract with Deloitte to utilize the firm for consulting and accounting services in regards to compliance and documentation issues regarding the utilization of CARES Act funds. We have a motion and a second to approve item C. Discussion. Actually, I have a few questions. I mean, I know how I'm going to vote, but I'm so curious about what's coming. Dan, if you wouldn't, can you come down and have a little discussion about what we can expect going forward here if we vote yes?
Good morning. My name is Dan Costello. I'm the managing partner of Deloitte in Omaha. It's a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to assist in the CARES Act distribution process. I'm joined by Kathy, who's on Zoom, and I'll give her the opportunity to speak. She is a specialist that has done this project, quite frankly, all over the country, many times over again after disasters. And in this case, obviously, COVID-19 is a disaster. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, Deloitte in Omaha, we have about 250 professionals. We serve a number of different organizations, all the way from the public sector through public and private companies, audit. Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Much better, thank you.
And we serve a number of public and private companies, tax, audit, and consulting type services. And many don't know that we actually do services like what we're going to be doing here. And so this is an opportunity that where we do have specialists that provide this type of assistance. And so we're really encouraged by the opportunity that came up from the governor and the governor's office and the group that we've been working with at the Nebraska level, and then the opportunity that came up to work with the county. And so we're going to talk about what's going to happen and how it's going to work. And Kathy can do that. I'm hopeful that Kathy will be able to be heard with the communication. I know that it's been a bit challenged so far. So Kathy, are you there?
She's muted, Karen. You might want to unmute her.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Dan, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Now I can.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Good morning. Thank you. Kathy, I lead our national crisis practice, and I'm very happy to be in Nebraska and supporting Ppe and supporting Douglas County going forward with the administration of your coronavirus relief funds. We have several items in front of you today for review. I'm happy to answer any question about overall. We'll be supporting Joe Lorenz and the team at the county in and help set up processes, procedures that are consistent with the procedure setting for the state, and work to ensure at the end of the day that you get your program funds out and for them, report on them in a very transparent and account. And I have addressed you may have.
Thank you.
So to pronounce her name, Kathy Schwerdferger, SCHWERDTFEGER.
The common spelling.
Exactly right. Just as it sounded, right? Do you have any questions? Happy to answer any questions or about Deloitte or about the specifics of.
My questions are less for Deloitte than they are about us and our process.
Okay.
And what, we've never been through anything like this before, obviously. No, none of us has. I mean, and so this whole thing is quite a learning curve for us. A lot of these funds, there's no great rush on getting them out. It's important to get them out appropriately, but in some cases there are some where we are anxious to move quickly, and I don't want to move too quickly. I have committed to Commissioner Boyle to help him and give our highest priority to getting masks out to residents of South Omaha. We aren't sure of the process, but there is a need now for PPE. And I have pledged to him that as quickly as we can get things moving, I would like to try to get masks out into South Omaha as fast as we can. I don't know how fast we can. I don't know. I mean, I know we'll be setting up some kind of a portal. We'll have an application process that every entity will fill out some kind of an application and submit through a portal, I believe. And I'm just kind of curious about time frame. How quickly can we move on some of this? How long do you think it might take?
Kathy, would you like to speak to the timing question? Kathy, are you there?
Asking up their various programs and last Friday. Yes, can you hear me okay now?
It's choppy.
Hello?
It's choppy. Maybe if you could start again and try and speak distinguished and.
Can you hear me?
Yes. No. Kathy, maybe try one more time.
Yes, very choppy here. It's hard to hear.
Go ahead, it's more clear now.
Yes, our goal is to work this, thank you. Our goal is to work as quick as we can with this county to get the processes for application and award moving quickly. Already begun that process with the state in the several weeks, and the programs were just released live yesterday for the Department of Economic Development. Additional programs rolling out at DHHS as well as state government grants as well. We plan those grants to go live from the state and hope to have county similar the next 3 weeks. If we can get it done faster, it all depends on how much configuration we'll need to do specific to the county to make all of that work. We're standing ready and have been expediting that state and have one agency already up and moving on processes. And now we're turning our attention to Douglas County and the Department of Health and Human Services.
Very good. Well, we will be anxious to move as quickly as we can and still do things properly, getting ready for the inevitable audit. So, Commissioner Boyle, did you have a comment?
We'll turn red, there we go. I really don't know what you said, Kathy. I heard you, but we need these masks 3 weeks ago. It's not a complicated subject, and I don't want to have to go through the state of Nebraska to get these masks. We have multi-generational families living in South Omaha, from babies up to 82-year-old women, grandmothers, and her son works at the packing plant. Do you get the drift? There's a whole slew of people who are exposed to the virus. I was at an event in South Omaha over the weekend, and I had someone say to me, what are you doing here? And I thought it was kind of odd, and I said, well, I'm participating in this event. And I had a mask and so forth, and she said, this is very dangerous here. And I said, what do you mean? She said, so many of these people have the virus that it's really dangerous for you to be here because you're over 65, you shouldn't be here. So we don't want any, I appreciate what you're saying, I guess what you said, but 3 weeks, if that's what I heard you say, that's not good enough.
Commissioner,
We need these masks as soon as possible.
Yeah, can I add to that? This is Patrick Bloomingdale, County Administrator. I've talked to purchasing. We do have a significant number of masks that are not N95 masks, but they are just the cloth masks that I believe that we can access because they're not specifically earmarked. So there's two things that can happen. One, we can get with purchasing to see if we can get, like 10,000 of those. I think that's what you're talking.
We need 60,000 is the number that I'm pushing. We've got 60,000 we need, Patrick.
We'll look at that first, and also get on to getting, even outside of this process, if we're talking about purchasing masks and not doing an application process, the problem it could be, actually, if you need 60,000, getting them like within the next week could be a problem just because of
That's
inventory.
because you didn't ask 2 weeks, nobody acted 3 weeks ago when I started asking for these. So
Well, we didn't have the direction to
Let me
do
be very blunt,
that.
Patrick. Douglas County purchased, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 of these masks that, I don't have one on, I don't think. But we purchased that and we used COVID money, I believe. And who authorized that? Did you authorize that?
I'm sorry, to
Just
do what?
to buy all the masks with the county seal, did you authorize that?
I was directed to purchase those and we did.
Okay, well, who directed you to do that?
Well, I spoke with Chris Rogers, who's the chair, or the president of the Board of Health,
Yeah.
and then Commissioner Borgeson,
Okay,
who's
well,
the HR director.
now I'm
HR
asking
chair.
for 60,000 nice, just no fancy cloth masks for 60,000 citizens who are exposed to the virus in South Omaha. I'm making that official request right now. I want to be treated the same as Commissioner Borgeson and Commissioner Rogers. So will you deliver, just like you delivered all these 40,000 or whatever we bought for the county employees at a cost of probably close to $50,000. I don't know what we paid for them, but I'm making the same request right here, right now, in public, to get masks for South Omaha, minimum of 60,000, probably another 60,000 in 3 weeks. I need that, and we don't need to spend that kind of money. We can get them, as the correction department did. They got them for $1.40 from the correction prisoners in Lincoln. May I have that authorization? Will you please buy those masks, some masks? not necessarily the fancy cloth ones, just masks. Patrick, will you do that? You got direction from 2 commissioners, not 1 from me. Who do I need to beg?
Well, I guess we're
Mary
here
Ann
sitting
or
here
Chris?
with the other commissioners, so I guess I would ask for some input from commissioner. I'm trying to look
Well,
up
you
the
did-
email from Michelle Horton, because she told me how many masks we have in stock. So we have let's see, approximately 164 boxes of 50 per box from Mangelson's of the surgical disposable masks. So that's obviously not nearly enough of what you need. So
Okay.
that's something, like I said, if the board wants to go outside that process for this purchase for the public.
Patrick, you already
Well-
went outside the process.
We didn't
For
go
a
outside
purchase
the
for
process.
employees.
Yeah,
And
but
and-
I want to purchase for citizens who are taxpayers.
all I can say, Commissioner, is that there's several other commissioners sitting here. I would ask the other commissioners to give some input before I
Okay, listen,
get.
you didn't, let me make it clear. You asked for no input when you bought all these expensive masks for the county employees. You didn't come to me. First time I saw them was when they were in the office. I'm obviously angry about this. I am hitting a brick wall when I'm asking for masks for citizens who need them. They are exposed to the virus. And I know they're fancy ones we bought for the county. Okay, I'm opposed to that. I didn't like it. What did we pay for that? $50,000 for those masks? I want 60,000 disposable masks now. And I wanted the same treatment as you treated other commissioners. We're not going to have a vote for my mask. You buy them. That's an order. Do you understand? Buy
Commissioner,
them. If there's an objection from Commissioner Borgeson, say so. Are you objecting to this purchase for these masks for South Omaha?
When I'm called on.
Pardon me?
She's waiting until she's called on.
Well, okay, I'll yield, but I'm telling you, I want this done, and we're not going to do it any differently than you did for the 2 favorites on the board, apparently. Treat me equally. And I do want to say something else. I'm also very concerned about having 1 firm representing the state and Douglas County. Now, it's not a bad idea, but no one's probably ever told you, we have a rocky relationship with the state. They don't pay their bills to us most of the time. I, for one, do not trust them. I do not trust Governor Ricketts. He seems to have forgotten that Omaha is here. And I don't know, he plans on giving all the money to Lodgepole or someplace. I want our fair share. We've got 30% of the population. I want 30% of the money. We need it. We have people and we have nonprofits ready to step up. All this gobbledygook, all we need is straight action. But I am very concerned about you representing both of us, because who is your client? You have 2 of us, and we are going to disagree on things. I think we need to have someone to oversee what you do who's qualified to look and tell us that you're representing them and not us. With all due respect, Mr. Costello, you have a conflict immediately. And if no one told you, that's too bad. But you have 2 people who have battled over money for years. When they pulled out of paying for the prisoners they had in Douglas County, they left us with a tab several years ago of $20 million. It's property tax money we have to come up with, and they walked away from us, Governor Heineman. So we have a bad relationship. It's not fair. They just tell us, we're not going to pay. So what do? That's what you're walking into. Sorry to have the outburst, but I'm very angry about not being treated fairly when other commissioners are able to get all these big fancy masks, and I'm trying to get them for the public. I did get 10,000, took them to a homeless shelter, Stevens Center in South Omaha, and I took them to a couple of restaurants that had no masks. So now I need more masks for actual people who are living in the virus. Look at the map. It's the big red zone. That's the district I'm trying to get the masks for. So I'm not going to listen to anything about 3 weeks. I want them now.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle.
Sorry.
We have other commissioners waiting in the queue to speak. However, we've had a request from the clerk's office. We're having some issues with the Zoom, our Zoom meeting. A number of our guests are unable to
Speaker, the clerk asked a speaker here, so our idea, I don't know what else to do, and I hate to do this, but I don't know what else to do. I think we're just gonna ask folks we were gonna stop it, and then just ask folks to rejoin us, maybe give it a minute or 2 and rejoin us, and because I don't know what else to do. We tried muting everybody, we've tried everything that we could think of, and we're still having, people are still notifying us they're having issues either hearing, or obviously our speakers have had issues as well. So.
Is your suggestion then that we pause the meeting, have everybody on Zoom hang up and call in again? I mean,
Well, I don't know what else to do. So yes, it is. I mean, I guess if we may recess for 5 minutes, obviously it's your call. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, but that's the only idea I have right now is to try to make this work.
Okay, if everybody listening on Zoom, if you are hearing that, I hope you are. We're going to take a 5-minute break here and ask everybody to hang up and call in again. Sorry about that. We will resume this meeting in 5 minutes. It is 9:28. In exactly 5 minutes, we are going to resume.
For anyone who's watching at home, and if you were participating via Zoom and you want to get back on the Zoom call, you can do so now. We just took a break in case you couldn't hear us because we were having too many technical issues with the Zoom call, so we took a 5-minute recess. And if you want to try join again via Zoom, please do so now. We'll probably start the meeting back at 9:33 a.m. Thank you.
Hey, Amber.
well.
Okay, great.
Kraft was choppy and Kathy was choppy. and Now we can see the
Yeah, she's
and
moving.
stuff.
Kathy's moving now.
I would ask commissioners to be working your ways back to your seats, please. I'd like to come here pretty quick. Okay, we will resume our meeting here after a 5-minute recess. Mr. Clerk, did you have something you wish to say?
Thank you, Dan Esch, Douglas County Clerk. Just if the folks who rejoined us, if you're still having issues on your computer, the other option is there should be a phone number you could call in and listen and participate that way. But we'll probably, if there's still issues, which I haven't heard, so hopefully there's not. But if there is, I doubt we're going to restart it again. We're just going to have to go through it.
Very good. Thank you all, and thank you for your patience with the new technology. Commissioner Boyle.
I do want to talk to you seriously about, I am very serious about the conflict. You absolutely have a conflict representing both of us. And I want you to, you're going to have to come to us. The state is a lot more powerful. It's the governor and all the rest of those folks. And so they're much more powerful than we are. And the temptation, and I know you're going to be dragged by the state saying, you know, this is what we're giving to Cherry County, population 2012 or whatever. We have needs here that are very, very big. They're serious, all sorts. We have people being evicted from their homes. We have a lot of really terrific agencies, from legal aid to all sorts of agencies that can help with this. What I hope we do is that we set it up so that the nonprofits will be able to serve the citizens that they have already worked with in many cases. But I'm really concerned, I'm counting on you to stand up to the state of Nebraska and say, hey, listen, there's a county up a little bit of ways from you, 55, 60 miles from you, that have close to 800,000, 900,000 people, and they need to be treated fairly. I'm counting on you, okay? And I think, frankly, I would like to see us hire someone to tell us when things are going off the rails, because I don't know how you're going to do it if you're representing both of us, to tell you the truth. How are you going to do that? What if the state says a county doesn't get much money? What are you going to do? You're going to say, yeah, they need it? And then what do? You're going to tell us? I mean, we're powerless.
So let me address the question. Thank you for the question, and understand the reason for asking, and appreciate the history perspective, which I did not have. So first of all, you know, the ask of us is to administer the CARES Act, and that's what we'll do. And there will be some gray, but for the most part, we'll make it very distinct and clear as far as the processing of the requests. Now, that being said, there has been coordination. There is benefit to doing it together, because there are only 2 organizations in the state that will be processing these. And so this will make it more efficient and get more money at the end of the day to your taxpayers, which really is what we want to do, is make this as efficient as possible. I do know that there have been discussions that have been ongoing with the state already to make sure that this is coordinated before we even start, and that we can avoid any conflict. Now, with that, I know Joseph Lorenz, you know, who is president. I don't know the protocols for who can speak and those things, but they have had ongoing discussions as recent as Friday with the state, and working through a protocol to coordinate. So if you folks are so inclined, it may be advantageous to hear from him as far as that process and that work that's already been done, to be responsive to Commissioner Boyle's question.
Thank you. Yeah, I do not believe there's but Joe, I would ask, can you shed a little light on this? We intentionally sought out to work with the same firm as the state. There are criteria looking for the firm that had the most national expertise and could help them best with this process were the same criteria we were seeking. And in this instance, despite our track record, whether it always bothers me when people say they don't want to do something for the city or the state because of some past perceived wrong by the city or the state. This issue needs to stand on its own.
Right.
And I believe that we should be working coordinated with the state to make sure that everybody gets the help that they need. Joe?
Yeah, Commissioner, what you have to understand is Deloitte is essentially going to be helping us with the compliance. You know, the CARES Act has guidance out there, and we got the money up front, which is very unusual, and the government's not going to have anything to do with it, the federal government, until December 30th, when we have to give them back what we don't spend, and then sometime after that, we're going to get it audited by the Inspector General, and if we spent the money inappropriately, we're going to have to pay back the federal government from our general fund. So the compliance issue is very important, and that's really what I think Deloitte brings, and also a consistency that the two parties within the state will be doing things consistent. And Claire and I and Patrick had a conversation with the governor and some of his staff on Friday, and we kind of reached agreement where, you know, we have our $166 million, and we're going to spend it for our causes within Douglas County. And the only thing where we will have a joint payment with the state on would be we reached agreement that for qualifying CARES Act expenses for the city of Omaha, we're going to split those 50-50. But otherwise, they're going to have their pool and their decisions. We're going to have our pool and our decisions. And the thing that Deloitte brings to the party is that we're going to disperse the funds in a consistent manner, hopefully in compliance with the guidance issued by the government.
There we go. I understand all those things, totally, but I just want to know who is going to be speaking for Douglas County and for the city of Omaha, for that matter, to get a fair share of the billions that the state is getting. Are we even?
Well, we have our $166 million. That's our
not
allocation.
enough. That's not enough. What about we're part of the state, so are you saying we don't get any because we have the $166 million?
And then we have that, and then anything that the city of Omaha receives for qualifying expenses will be funded 50% out of our $166 million and 50% out of the state's allocation.
Okay, so all the applications we make are that we get from the citizens, from the people on the street, the nonprofits who come in, we're going to be able to fund all of that? And what about the city of Omaha? They're short.
All decisions on funding within Douglas County will be made by the commissioners.
Well, we need more money. What, is the state going to give us any money, Joe?
No, I have talked to the governor. It's not fair to ask staff. No, the state is not giving us any more money. We're trying to figure out who's going to be responsible for what entities. But I can assure you, the state has no intention of giving us any more money.
Well, why is that? Aren't we part of Nebraska? I mean, last time I looked.
Because all we're trying to do here is hire Deloitte.
You know, I understand that, but
you're going back to the basics. We obviously know that we have our own pool of funds to administer. We're all well aware of that. That's why we're here.
Well, I understand, but he is going to have a terrible job, I think, trying to coordinate if that's what he's doing. But who is it? Are you and Patrick or whoever it is, are you talking to the state and agreeing that we don't get any of their money?
There's nothing to
our money.
Well, we have $166 million directly from the Fed. Right now, I'm prioritizing myself on how to spend the $166 million in the best manner under being in compliance with the guidelines.
Well, guidelines, I agree with all that stuff, Joe. I agree with it, but I cannot believe that last time I looked on my license plates, it said Nebraska, and we're not sharing. Wasn't the money given to the state based on population or something?
Yes, just like it was given to us based on population, because we have over 500,000 people.
Okay, listen, I'll get out of the way. I am for this arrangement, except I just want to caution you.
Claire, can I speak?
Get ready.
In a moment, Commissioner Kraft. I have one other ahead.
I won't say any more. I'll try to knock it off, but I'm going to vote for this, but you're in for a trip, I think.
Thank you. Commissioner Borgeson.
I just wanted to clarify, thank you, Mr. Chair, that the federal government gave counties a $500,000 or more direct deposit by the Treasury or cities and counties of $500,000 or more direct payments. The state received money, not including what we got. That was taken out of their portion and given to the state to shell out to everybody in cities and counties, 500,000 population and less. What our chair has been doing is working with the state, and tell me if I'm correct on this, has been working with the state on how to share in the cost of expenses in payment for the city of Omaha. The other jurisdictions within Douglas County will be the responsibility of the county with the dollars that we received. But the share for the city of Omaha, because it's the largest amount, will be shared, and we're hoping, or can we say, that it's a 50-50, we're hoping anyway.
It's agreed to.
It is agreed to, okay, a 50-50 split. So we will get 50% of those approved expenses of the city of Omaha split between Douglas County and the state of Nebraska.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft?
Yes. The other night, I took the opportunity to reread the April 22nd guidance and the May 28th question and answers from the state. And in that, there's a lot of ambiguity about what could and could not be covered. But in the May 28th answer from the state, it is clearly stated that the only thing we're getting from the government is the 166 million that we, the county, other than the shared expenses with the city, are not going to get any more. So that is clearly spelled out. And I think we should perhaps all read these guidances and question and answers again. That was April 22nd guidance and the May 28th questions and answers by the state.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. Other comments, either from the board or the public, before we consider action on this?
These
Commissioner
lights do
Kevin.
not work. I take. Yeah, I know.
If you get my attention,
I'll call out.
The
Thank
floor is
you.
yours.
Yeah, I have some questions. So, Kathy from Deloitte, and forgive me, my pronunciation is.
Okay, can you hand that to me so I can hold it?
Schwemwords? Is
Yep.
that even close?
Close enough, yep.
Okay. Is Kathy in Omaha?
She is not.
She is now.
No.
She is not.
She is not in
I'm sorry.
Omaha. No, she
You
is
have to
not.
speak up.
Okay, I'm gonna go, okay, come here so I can see what you're reading. Okay,
Thank you.
Commissioner, she's based in Austin, Texas.
I see. Okay. I have real concerns, and Commissioner Boyle touched on some of these, relative to the glaring conflict of interest between the state of Nebraska and Douglas County on these funds. Clearly, there's no agreement, there has been no discussion of a 50-50 split on funding for the city of Omaha, the city of Ralston, city of Valley, Bennington, Waterloo, any of our cities. And I get today that Commissioner Duda and a couple of our staffers met with the governor to negotiate this, unbeknownst to me anyhow. I don't know, it never came before this board. I'm not in agreement that the state owes us nothing from their billion-plus appropriations from the federal government on CARES. And I don't see how Deloitte, sitting in the middle of this with contracts with both parties, can actually, in good faith, say that they don't have a glaring conflict of interest. This is a bad, bad idea for that reason, but also for the fact that we should be distributing funds now. For instance, as Commissioner Boyle pointed out, we should be distributing PPEs to needed populations now. We've had this money for, 6-8 weeks, and we've given nothing to the people of Douglas County, but we're going to enter into a contract that it appears to be a $5 million contract from us, $5 million from the state of Nebraska, to pay these consultants to do our job.
That's not true.
All right.
That
I
figure is
see.
wrong.
I'll get to the contract, Mr. Costello, and I have some questions for you and Mr. Lorenz, but I'm not asking you questions right now. So what we've got here is a situation where we have latent needs among the citizens of Douglas County for help now. For instance, the masks that Commissioner Boyle points out haven't been delivered. We've had the money for 2 months. Rent assistance that we held a hearing on 2 weeks ago for people who had to pay rent June 1st on unemployment, lost their jobs, not getting any rent assistance, but we're going to enter into a $5 million contract with a consultant to tell us sometime, and I'm hearing 3 weeks from now, what we can do with some of this money that we've been sitting on for 2 months. You know, people pay rent month to month. They don't pay rent long term. People eat day to day. They don't eat long term. And we need to do things for people today. The fact that we don't have answers to many of these questions, like why are we doing a thing with the governor's consultants when the governor is telling us he's not going to give us any of the money that we deserve? How much is this contract? And it's unclear, but it has a $5 million cap in it. The contract before us isn't even with Douglas County. It's got a page of amendments saying any place that we should have Douglas County in this contract where it says state of Nebraska, put Douglas County in there. I can't imagine that any lawyer in the real world would say to their client, you know, this is a good deal for you. Go ahead and sign this contract. We have a contract that backdates to May 27th, 2020. We have a contract that costs up to $5 million with a whole list of project hourly rates ranging to $350 an hour. And we have notifications in the contract that's before us that don't include anybody from Douglas County. Any notifications in here will have to be amended into this contract. And it says the contractor shall not commence any billable work until a valid contract has been fully executed. So we're, you know, as Mr. Costello pointed out, realistically weeks, if not months away from giving any real relief to the citizens of Douglas County with this $166 million that we already have. Meanwhile, people are out of work, paying rent or not, getting health care or not, getting PPEs or not, because we can't decide to do our job. So in addition to why should we have the same consultant as the governor, the question is, why should we have a consultant at all? Commissioner Duda apparently doesn't have a long memory, says we've never done anything like this before. Well, yes, we have. I personally participated in a $42 million distribution of federal funds with the city of Omaha that we did without consultants. I personally participated in the last public safety bond, $35 million that we did without consultants. This is our job. We should do this without a conflict, without a $5 million contract to pay consultants. The notice from our consultants, if we need one, which I question, should be to us and not to the state of Nebraska. The expenses, which are in excess, in addition to the $5 million cap, are not spelled out in there, the contract at all, so we could end up on the hook for those as well. The questions that I have to, I guess, our administration, which has been negotiating unbeknownst to us with the governor and everybody else, including Deloitte Touche, are why do we do this? Why, you know, I guess Chairman Duda, you're the only elected official who's been in the room with the governor. Why are we doing this conflict of interest contract with the governor when he's telling us he's not going to give us any money? Why would we do this? This is a bad idea. Why would we do this?
Are you done talking?
I'm asking you a question,
Are you-
if you can answer it.
Are you done talking?
Oh, you're not answering, no?
I am going to answer as soon as you are done speaking.
Well, I've got more questions, but
Then
if you
I
don't want to
will-
have any questions on a $166 billion conflict of interest contract with Deloitte Touche, I guess I just ask, why are we doing this?
Whenever you are done talking, I will give you answers.
Okay. The questions that I have for Mr. Costello are, how much of the $5 million that is outlined in this contract do you anticipate charging Douglas County?
Yeah, I got
Oh,
the.
I'm sorry, that was for Mr. Costello.
Oh, come on. You ask a question, somebody's
Of
trying to
Mr.
answer it.
Costello. Maybe I wasn't clear. Mr. Costello, or Kinsella, I'm sorry. Kinsella.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know you were talking
No,
to me.
I appreciate that. You're very good. Mr. Kinsella, and I should remember that, how much of that do you think this contract would actually result in costing Douglas County out of its?
And Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, about 300,000.
And what is that based on?
The amount of time, it's all based upon the amount of time that we expect that will be attributed to that effort.
Okay, and for the state of Nebraska?
That's a not to exceed fee of $5 million.
Correct.
We will bill up until that point. We don't expect it will exceed that. We're going to be as efficient as possible. Part of the reason that different organizations have chosen to use Deloitte in this instance is that we've been there, done that, and so we can hit the ground running and quickly help you to administer the benefits that you seek to get to your taxpayers.
Sure. The CARES Act is unique. There's never been anything like the CARES Act before. So when you say you've done this before, could you give us an example of a CARES Act that you've done before someplace?
Well, the different crises that have occurred in our country, the hurricanes, tornadoes, other events that FEMA has enacted disaster response. There are compliance requirements that are a part of that, and there are funds that are granted to be administered to those that were most impacted in a process that's executed and administered, which we will follow in this instance, similar to, again, other crises. The CARES Act is in this capacity a crisis, a significant one, albeit, but a crisis that our country is recovering, in this case, with monies to be distributed.
Okay. Yeah, we had a big flood here last year, you're probably aware of.
I'm very
We didn't have
familiar,
a consultant
yes.
Working with us on FEMA on that, but that seemed to got pretty well taken care of without consultant fees. So if I understood you correctly, you want to represent Douglas County and the state of Nebraska. What happens when we have a disagreement about the state's position not to pay us anything out of their billion-plus portion?
So in this instance, in every instance really that Deloitte assists our clients, we really never make what we consider our management decisions, right? We will help to administer efficiently, tell you what the compliance requirements are, and then we will leave it to those charged with governance to make the decisions, right? So in this particular instance, I don't think you would, Deloitte is not making decisions. We're executing the decisions that you all make, right? And you will come to those decisions, state, the county, and then we will execute those for you. We have no intention of trying to, challenge some of the past circumstances that you've been frustrated with. The only thing I would say is this. I mean, we're honored to have the opportunity, but if you think it's a bad idea, listen, we don't want to be in the middle of a situation that is atomic, right? We think maybe this is an opportunity to put some things behind us and move forward and make this an opportunity to really work efficiently and effectively with the state and maybe to put some things to rest. Now, listen, I get it, and I know that I obviously have observed some of the frustrations, and they're probably rightful frustrations based upon wrongs that have happened in the past. But I would ask this group, I would ask this group to say that, listen, if you want to try and make this as best as it can be, we would love to assist in that process. If this is going to be a challenging political battle for the next year, I mean, maybe we're not the right firm to be in it. And listen,
I
this
appreciate your candor. Thank you very much, because I can see this forming up to be exactly that. The governor, who has yet to move on Medicaid expansion, which was passed in 2018 by the voters of Nebraska, is not a reliable partner when it comes to delivering these types of assistances to citizens in Nebraska. The governor, who's presided over a terribly flawed COVID testing system, which is questioned by just about everybody who has an opinion, is not a person to step in and lead the charge on COVID relief from our point of view. And the governor, who has told our chairman apparently that we're getting no money from the state, although we represent almost a third of the state's population, is not somebody who's a reliable partner, and I think would put you in a very, very difficult position. So yes, this is going to be contentious going forward, because I, for one, am not going to sit by while Claire Duda or any other single commissioner says, we're writing off any money from the state. We're saying we don't want it. I'm not on with that. I think we deserve, as Commissioner Boyle pointed out, up to a third from the state. I'm not on with backroom deals that Commissioner Duda and staffers do with the governor behind closed doors. Here's one thing I would ask Mr. Kinsella. If this were to go forward and you were put in a very unenviable position of representing both Douglas County and Nebraska on what is going to be an extremely contentious process, would it be your intention to hold public hearings, town halls in Douglas County regarding what our citizens believe are the needs that CARES could fill? Is that something that you would be in favor of?
So I think we would be an observer if you and the state chose to administer such hearings, right? But again, we are not the decision makers in this circumstance. We will administer the decisions that are made by the entities aforementioned. But I don't, I don't seek to take kind of your position or your responsibility and put it on us to make those decisions. Because again, I understand there's process and protocol and public hearings and things when there are contentious circumstances. And we would observe and again, I guess, apply the outcomes of that, but I would not expect us to administer that effort.
Okay. Just in terms of let's get something done here today. I'm not in favor of this contract, and I'm not going to vote for this contract. I think it's unnecessary. But it's probably going to go, and if it does, then what would be your position on immediately providing renters relief to citizens of Douglas County in need of paying their rent? Well, they needed to pay it June 1st. They'll need to pay it again probably either June 15th or July 1st. How quickly could you help us move to provide those renters with dollars in their pocket to pay rent? That's a very specific ask.
Yeah, Kathy, could you talk about maybe workarounds that organizations have done to make immediate needed payments, and then you can do some of the activities in arrears to catch up? I'm probably not using the right terms, but Kathy, can you speak to maybe options that they may be availed to?
Sure. So the position the county is in is you first have to make decisions as a body as to what you want to do, who you want that to go to, what the rules are going to be around that for fairness and equity. And you've got to go through those processes to design that. We can help you walk through those processes to get to those decisions. And once those decisions are made, you have to have the processes internally at the county to actually then take those applications from those groups of people and then process them and approve them and then distribute the funds in accordance with that. That all takes time to stand up. In my understanding and talking with Joe and others at the county, you're not there today to be able to distribute monies in a week to all of these folks because you need to figure out who they are, how much you want to distribute, and what rule set you're going to apply, and how long you're going to distribute that. And what portion of those monies is that going to take up versus providing PPE to the cities within your jurisdiction? And the other activities that those cities and other community activities are going to look to you to provide. So you have to figure out the full puzzle of what you want to provide to who and when, and how quickly you can roll those programs out, and then begin rolling them out in the priority that you choose as a governing body that you want to roll them out.
Okay, and I appreciate, Kathy, you're in Austin, Texas, is that right?
That's correct. That's where I live.
Okay. I appreciate what you're saying. We've already held hearings on this very specific point with our General Assistance Department, which already provides renters assistance. And I don't expect you to be aware of this. I don't know if you've ever been to Douglas County or the General Assistance Department. But we have an apparatus in place that does this already. What it would involve is us taking the decision to suspend some restrictions on renters assistance and allow people to qualify, say for instance, if they were on unemployment insurance. And we could stand that up very quickly. We've held the hearing. The administrators said that that could be done. We have the emergency powers to suspend the regulations that limit renters assistance to a very low amount and to needs-based that wouldn't fit in the COVID crisis. So taking that into consideration, is there some role that Deloitte would play in us facilitating getting renters assistance to people, in the next week to 10 days rather than the next 3 months? Is there some role that you could play in expediting that? Is that part of the job that you see Deloitte performing for us?
So the scope that we had drafted based on the communications to this point with the county have been to support you in going through the processes and get documented what your guidelines are, what your rule sets are, and then begin to support realistically how quickly you can move within the county to make those very things happen. And we have not yet been hired, so we have not had all of that time to spend with your county staff to know exactly what you can and can't do and how fast you can move it. Our goal is to help you get that done very quickly, to the extent that you have the bandwidth and the time and the process is already established. Then you don't need Deloitte to do that if you already have it. If you need our support to build the application intake processes or to actually process the actual request for reimbursements, which many of your programs are reimbursement based versus front end based. All of those decisions we would need to understand from the county, and then we can help you define how best to do that. We do that, as Dan mentioned, with other disasters, whether it's billions of dollars of Hurricane Katrina, Rita, Gustav Ike, Irma, Maria, Sandy, all of those. And communities need money quick. We get that. There are ways that you can get monies out very, very quickly to the parties you want to get them out. You just have to do so in a very compliant way so that at the end of the day, you comply with the requirements of 2 CFR 200, which are the same requirements that apply to all the other disaster grants, apply to these COVID grants as well.
Thank you. And you're doing CARES compliance with other jurisdictions besides the state of Nebraska and Douglas County? Deloitte?
Yes, we are currently, we provide support in Texas. We also are, we're the providers for all disaster programs in the state of Louisiana. We're also in New York, working with the state of New York to define how they're going to apply for all the various CARES Act programs and then how they're going to put the processes in place. and we work as a team in those states with other providers and with other city and county and local officials to make the states whole. So we are engaged in other places across the country doing this kind of work. Not
that's
just
great.
coronavirus, but also other disaster programs for many of the disasters I mentioned.
That's great. So in any of these other jurisdictions, if you know, have you worked on a renter's assistance program?
They are in consideration. Everyone is about where you are. These monies have just been allocated. They're all building their programs now. In past disasters, they're particularly with the HUD funds coming down through the Community Development Block Grant through disaster recovery. Renters assistance, loan support for building new homes are all programs that we have helped to stand up and execute over the period of getting those communities rebuilt and those individuals placed in temporary housing while that was happening.
So if you could project if this contract, such as it is, with the amendments were approved today, which I guess is going to be the chairman's intent, how quickly could you get us stood up so that we could provide renter's assistance to residents of Douglas County, Nebraska?
We would begin working with the county to understand what processes you have in place to do that. And certainly based on your current processes that you have and your capability to distribute, we certainly can start immediately in understanding that. If it has to be built from scratch, it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks to get things built from scratch. The idea behind Deloitte and the reason why the county came to Deloitte did not come to the county. I want to be very clear. The county came to Deloitte based on the fact that we're doing this with the state, and it was believed to be an expedient route for the county. If we're already building this out for the state, could we tag the county on and make sure there's special considerations for the county to move you more expeditiously forward to do the very things that you want to do? That timeline with the state is 3 weeks from now. So if you're eager to move faster than that, and you believe you need the processes we're building to do that, we would have to look for ways to shortcut the process. You may have within your own control the ability to make whatever decisions you want to make regarding various activities for the renter's assistance. If you can distribute that through your current programs and you've gone through the process and you know who that needs to go to and you're ready to distribute that, anything that we would do wouldn't stand in your way to do that now if your county staff believes they have the resources to do it and they've made all the decisions and you all as county commissioners have approved the overall framework for that program. I was not aware that any of those. I know you've had conversations, but I don't know the program's been completely built out and approved by the commissioners.
Sure. It would probably be helpful if somebody from the staff forwarded to you the minutes of the Douglas County Board's Health and Human Services Committee meeting on this exact point held in late May. And I'd ask that they do that because it sounds like we do have a process in place that, but for funding, could be up and running ASAP. And, you know, your mention of the state is emblematic of the ongoing problems that I just want you to be aware of. The state does not inspire confidence on delivering on anything.
We have other commissioners that have been waiting a long time to speak here, Commissioner.
We have $166 million to talk about, Mr. Duda. If you don't want to talk about it, then just say so, because this is the only public discussion that we've really had about this.
All I'm asking
assistance.
is for you to wrap up your comments quickly, please.
I'm not
So
going to
other
do that.
commissioners-
I'm not going to do that.
All
But
right.
you can shut down comments on
Then
it.
shut his microphone off. We have other commissioners that would like to speak as well. Commissioner Borg.
Or any other assistance at all, because you just want to do this with the governor behind closed doors down in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Could you please set my timer for 5 minutes?
Thank you. Commissioner Borgeson,
We
the
have
floor is
rules
yours.
that 5 minutes for each
The floor
commissioner.
is Commissioner
So
Borgeson.
this, to me, is a very good idea. This contract is very, very good. The behavior of this board definitely shows why this is a good idea. And this contract is very much needed. And again, I want to go back to the facts about the CARES Act. 500,000 population or more of city and counties received money directly from the Treasury. We received $166 million. The state of Nebraska received money minus what we received to take care of those with populations of 500,000 or less. Commissioner Duda, as chair of this board, has been working with the state to come up with a procedure and an agreement on how to share in the cost of reimbursing the expenses for the city of Omaha. If it's a 50-50 split, and again, if that's what they agreed to tomorrow, that's what I would have assumed if we had gotten to our discussion, that would have been brought out in today's conversation with Joe Lorenz, our chief financial officer. But again, this whole thing in terms of expending the dollars or distributing the dollars, there are guidelines that have to be followed. There has to be documentation, and it is documentation of what the money was spent on. And so we have all had our own ideas of what money could be spent on, but that's what we need to have the discussions and agreement amongst all of us as to, yes, that's what we want to spend the money on. There are other monies that are coming down, and there have been rental assistance payments given to citizens of Douglas County through other means. There have been PPEs distributed to communities in Douglas County from other means. So we now are setting up our process and procedures on how to distribute this $166 million that we have received. And so I welcome the contract, the oversight, partnership, whatever you want to call it, that we are entering into with Deloitte and Touche to move us through this process and get us to where we can start distributing. But this utter bickering is not going to get us there. So again, I am all for moving as quickly as we can. I think working with the state does make sense because, again, it's a partnership where they have money, we have money, and we don't want to duplicate, that's for sure, but we want to have a partnership with them, and especially with the expenses that the city of Omaha has incurred. So I think it's a good thing. I think we're on a good path. All the I's aren't dotted and T's aren't crossed, but I think a lot of thoughtful work has been put into this. And again, as we carry on over the weeks of discussion on this, and ultimately the distribution of this money, our goal is to spend those monies not only for the needs of Douglas County, but for all of Douglas County. And so again, I welcome and will be supporting this contract with Deloitte Touche.
Thank you, Commissioner Borgerson. I think there's a key question here when we talk about a potential conflict. What is our relationship with the state? Is it an adversarial relationship or is it a partnership? And in my mind, it's a partnership. I talked to our money people, our internal audit people early on in the process and said, does it make sense for us to use the same auditor as the state? And they said, yes, it does, because we are partners. We're not in an adversarial relationship with them. We are coming in as partners to meet the city of Omaha's needs. And so therefore to be on the same page and to be better coordinated does make sense to me. Now, if the tack you want to take is the state has to give us more money, then you are placing yourself in an adversarial position with the state and you're tilting at windmills because it isn't going to happen. Now, if you want to take up that fight, go for it. I'm not taking it up. I don't want to waste my time. I choose to pick my fights and to try to pick fights that are winnable and are worth winning. If you want to go to the governor and say, you got to give more money to us, go ahead and have that conversation. I'm not going to be a part of it. I know what the answer is going to be. So to me, we do have an opportunity to move forward together as partners with the state. I think it is important for us to do so. Thank you,
Commissioner
Boyle.
Duda, can I speak?
In 1 minute, Mark, or well,
Yes.
after Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Boyle.
Okay, all right. I do want to make it clear, I do intend to vote for this contract. I'm concerned, partners do split. It's kind of like can be a divorce. I mean, it happens, and good intentions and all the rest. But I'm looking at the act, and it says unfortunately, it's not numbered the pages, but it says, it might be page 6, I don't know. It says B, the State of Nebraska CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund priorities are state government, providing reimbursement for necessary COVID-19 related expenditures incurred by state agencies. The next one is local government, providing reimbursement for necessary COVID-19 related expenditures incurred by counties, cities, municipalities, villages, and utility districts. And the other one is, Community Cares provides qualifying organizations awards for services and programs strained due to the COVID-19 emergency. And then it goes on to talk about businesses and so forth with that. I think the state has an obligation to step in on, and it doesn't say except Douglas County. We're in there, and also cities. I'll speak on behalf of the city. I know they're hurting for, really lost a lot of revenue, and I'd like to see us and the state particularly step up and make the city whole. I believe all of us, with the exception of Commissioner Duda, live within the city. And it doesn't make any sense to treat them as, let's not support them. And I know we're trying to support them with this 50-50, but it ought to be something like, we have 10%, the state has 90. I mean, that's what I think. I think they do have to step up according to this regulation. Commissioner Kavanaugh talked about the apparatus. We do have a lot of apparatus and agencies in place ready to deliver these services. We have nonprofits as well. I've found the Social Services Department of Douglas County to be spectacular. They care about people and they really deliver service. The second thing is the renter's assistance is certainly a reimbursable one. And so if we could figure out a way to give that out, if we have the money and get reimbursed, that certainly is a clear cause of and we do need the oversight in the sort of service you're providing. Finally, there's another point, but I want to ask Deloitte, or at least say this and at some point answer that I'm very concerned, particularly in this day and age, about what the involvement is of minorities, blacks, Hispanics, other people, yellow people, the whole group. I'm really concerned that so many, and then we're included, we're not very good at it either. So we need to make sure that there are some involvement, and maybe this is where we have an opportunity to have a minority firm in Omaha, a CPA, just contribute and take a look and make sure that this partnership that we have is not going to end up in a divorce and we're going to not get the farm, The last thing is, sorry to say farm, it's really interesting to me that we're talking about all this disclosure and everything, and I'm all for it and everything else, and we're really honing in and doing these things. It's good to have that kind of transparency. Interestingly enough, the federal government won't even disclose who's getting the money. So I'm for this contract. I think I'd like to see a minority firm work with you, representing, making sure and kind of reporting to us, not necessarily telling on you, but there are going to be difficult times because the state has really made its decision on what it's going to do, and it is not favorable to the city of Omaha, I don't believe, to the extent that it should be, and it's not to the extent to the county. For example, I want to see a mental health facility open. We have, yesterday in the paper, 2 psychiatrists here at UNMC talked about the problems of people dealing with all the things that we've got going on, the massive changes, the breakup of our routines. People are really anxious and need help in mental health care. This is an opportunity for us to break ground, build a building, and if anybody can do it, someone said you can't do that, and I said Kiewit could. That's a big construction company in Omaha, So those are my final remarks, and I'm very hopeful that this gets moving, and I wish you good luck. And we are partners. I don't disagree, but get ready because you may find some luggage at the door someday.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, I'd like to point out that we elected Commissioner Duda as chair to initiate these conversations. We can't, each and every one of us, initiate the conversations with the governor. We can, but it's not going to go. Regarding forcing the state to give us more money. I had a imaginary neighbor, keyword imaginary, asked me, tried to force me to give him $500. Do you think that's going to succeed? No, it's not, unless I want to give $500. So we can't force the state to do this. And if we think we can, we're living in la la land. Now, regarding the reasons to go with Deloitte Touche, the key words that I've heard today were compliance, experience, the process, the procedures, oversight, and the building of the programs. Now, I think that alone is extremely important because the compliance, if we do anything that is non-compliant, such as revenue replacement for the city, we end up having to reimburse the federal government, federal treasury. I don't want to have to spend any money back to the federal government. It's hard enough to get money from them, and our citizens deserve this. Now, the citizens of Omaha and the citizens of Douglas County, all of them are going to benefit whether we give the money to the city or we use it to cover our expenses in juvenile detention, the sheriffs, the correctional facility, the health care, the health department. All of the citizens, it's the same dollar. They're going to benefit. Now, some of the asks from the city, such as a third of the cost of the city council, the third of the cost of the mayor's budget, wages. I don't think those are compliant. So the city is asking for a lot more than they are entitled to. And we need to be responsible only to give them that which they are entitled to. We're not responsible for revenue replacement. There's a lot more I could say, but that is the gist and the importance of the argument. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. I don't waste too much time trying to tell the state how they should be doing their business. The guidelines did recommend to the states that they allocate 45% of their funds to local governments, and the state of Nebraska has said they will put 100 million into local governments. It's not up to us to tell them that they should be complying with the guidelines, but I also recognize the reality of what they're doing, and the chances of them sharing any of that money with us is slim to none. It's just not going to happen. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Borgeson.
Commissioner Kraft hit on it, but I just want to again make a point that no CARES Act dollars can be used for revenue replacement or loss. Can't.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle.
You know what I would like to do, I understand that, and I have no objection. I understand exactly what was said, but I think what we need to do, because we haven't had it, I'd like to see, and I've spoken to her, but I would like to have a public sit-down with Mayor Stothard and Chris Jerem and try to clear the air on this, because we don't have the kind of relationship we should have with the city. I mean, it's pretty adversarial most of the time because we have some disputes, and I talked to her, and I told her there's some things I wanted to bring up that she's not going to want to hear. I talked about the JAG funding. I talked about how they argue on paying us. And I also told her it wasn't a good idea to have her lobbyists call us instead of her, and she made private calls then. But anyway, I think we need to hear from her and why, and also the finance guy. I was surprised when he said we should pay the full bill. I think we need to talk to them face to face, because what could happen is that if they're not able to get enough funding, and I'm not saying pay for their sales tax revenue, but somehow we need to figure out using what the law says about state government helping local government, and it says that it has to be necessary related to expenditures. I don't know what they can do, but maybe they can figure a way to help give the city more money, which means to us they won't have to raise taxes, at least not as largely high as they think they have to. But I think we ought to have an open dialogue with the city and the president of the city council, Chris Jerem. What would be the harm to hear that and talk about it and get it out of the air? I don't like to read these responses in the paper. No offense to the paper.
Okay. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
I think that we should have a robust discussion with all the cities in Douglas County. I don't recall any agreement by this board with the governor to split resources regarding the city of Omaha or any other city in Douglas County. I think that the discussion on that should be out in public, not down in the governor's office with one of our commissioners and a couple of staffers behind closed doors. I do have a question about actual benefits that we can provide. Mr. Lorenz is amused by the fact that we should discuss things in public, but I understand how he does business. The renter's assistance is something that we can obviously implement immediately. I think that in last week's meeting, the board adjusted budgets allowing $50 million to the administration of the County CARES Act funding, it was listed as. Certainly a portion of that could be directed to general assistance to initiate renter's assistance. I also would like to put out there that we should do utilities assistance as well. We certainly have the opportunity to work with our local public utilities, MUD and OPPD, on a utilities assistance initiative. And again, general assistance is already up and running, and as a conduit, we don't have to wait 3 weeks for our consultants to tell us that we should do what we should obviously do today. The same with food assistance, the same with medical assistance. We should do all of these using the undesignated $50 million that was appropriated for CARES Act funding last week and is apparently undelineated in the documents provided to us, the county board, on where that $50 million of the $166 million is to go. So I would just ask that we move today on assistance to actual people in need in Douglas County using funds that we obviously have and have had for a couple of months before we move to consultant assistance with a contract that we don't need with Deloitte Touche and the governor of the state of Nebraska. So I'd move that we do some renter's assistance through general assistance using those funds today. I make that motion.
We have a motion on the floor that happens to actually be on the agenda as well. We are not going to entertain a motion that is not on the agenda. And we currently have a motion on the floor. Anybody else wish to speak regarding the retention of Deloitte Touche? Did you have anything you wanted to add, Patrick?
Only if there was a motion and a second, then I would speak to that.
I think we have a motion
No,
and a
it's
second.
the one that Commissioner Kavanaugh had proposed.
I'm not going to entertain that motion.
Okay.
There's no second.
I would second the motion.
We've already got a motion on the floor.
I know that, but you just said there's no motion, there's no second. So I'll do that.
Okay, I'm not recognizing it anyway. We've already got a motion that we're
I
trying to
understand,
deal with.
but when you said-
And that's not on the agenda.
When you said there's,
Question of personal privilege, just for a second. Later on, we do have you delivering a CARES update to us. Could we entertain those motions during that portion of the agenda?
No. No.
We can't have any motions on CARES funding other than.
We can't allocate money when we don't have allocating money on the agenda. I would not be comfortable with that. I don't think that's compliant with Nebraska's open meeting laws.
Well, I don't see any money designated for this particular item, and it's obviously gonna cost us money.
Would anybody else like to speak to the hiring of Deloitte Touche? That's the item that is before us. If anybody would like to speak to it, now is the appropriate opportunity. Larry?
Sure. Could I use some extra time? Luis Jimenez, 3306 Birch Street.
I want to be positive because we're talking about partnerships. But we weren't born yesterday, Commissioner Claire Duda, so we can take history into account. I remember reading in the news that you went and spoke with Mayor Gene Stotthart when we first got the CARES funding. There's $80 million available to the county. It's sitting somewhere.
Okay.
That's what the news is, that there's funds that have already been transmitted to the county. And one of the things that was told to the mayor was that if you don't spend it right, you're gonna have to pay the money back. So I can understand why you would want an accountant that is dealing with these details and procedures, but the board is equipped to deal with the CARES Act. Let's not deny that. You have your committees. Unfortunately, the CARES Act on your agenda has mostly been on presentations, and that is not to do with moving things. You could have had this item, or this discussion in one of your committees. You could have had it sitting there for I don't know how many weeks it's been, but the fact of the matter is you're acting as a representative of the board and dealing with the state. And maybe that's not the best way to approach this when we need to involve a lot of voices. We need to involve a lot of people who have been impacted by COVID. And at this point, I'm feeling that people have already recovered. We don't need this money. It's been so long, we don't need the $160 million. Send it back, because there's a possibility that the federal government might deny all the expenditures because they're not related. Is that really a concern right now? If you guys are considering this allotment of money and what is being used for, are you really concerned that you're going to have to pay this money back? I'm not concerned, and I've dealt with grant money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha. You know, in the worst of the times during the Depression, people like to go to the theater and watch the comedies. And as I said here today, I think of, oh my gosh, Elmer Fudd would open his shotgun and he'd find there's no bullets. Wimpy would get a little hungry and he'd ask somebody, well, would you give me a hamburger? I'll promise to pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today. Well, this body seems to be disagreeing with the city and the state. Point being, there doesn't seem to be any money. We have to rely on the federal government. I don't think that's what representative government was about, folks. And now we're worried about, oh, we're going to have to pay them back. Well, before you agree with the federal government or anybody else, you should consider the fact that when you get money from somebody, they're going to expect it back in one form or another. So maybe you should say, instead of spending, we should be cutting. This may be your opportunity to cut a lot of the fat. But unfortunately, we've heard that term, nonprofits. They'll be marching down the aisle. Most of them come down that side, looking for their money and asking for more. And then there's some new ones, a new project, so we can heal. You got to learn how to say no. You got to solve this today. That's what we delegated to you. We citizens delegated our responsibility. That's what a Republican government is, and that was promised to us in our Constitution. However, we are charged as citizens with taking that delegation of responsibility or that job back at some time. Through the ballot box, yes. But unfortunately, I can't vote all of you out. My man isn't here today. I can't vote him out because he's not running anyway. But that's the only voice I have. It never gets told in the World Herald. It never gets told on KETV or Channel 6 or Channel 3. But last night, there was a rent issue on there in full living color. A citizen, red hair, worried about being evicted, got her eviction notice. But she also took the videographer on a little tour. The apartment that she's living in has quite a few code violations, apparently. Where was the city inspectors? Where was the mayor? Now we can ask, where is the rent assistance? She is, as far as I know, it wasn't North Omaha. But yes, we all maybe need assistance at some time. But before you dig the hole, think about how deep you're going to have to dig.
Thank you, Larry. Would anybody else like to address this group before we cast our vote? Good morning.
Will Timmons, 2464 Harney Street. Where my concerns lie aren't primarily in any potential negotiation conflict between the state and the city bureaucracies, as Commissioner Kavanaugh and Commissioner Boyle had touched on. They primarily lie in concerns I have about difficulties, hang-ups between the citizens of Omaha-Douglas County, because there's substantial overlap there, and the state of Nebraska. We've heard it stated that Deloitte, their job in this matter is to ensure compliance and marshal resources efficiently. But what does that mean when marshaling resources efficiently means underdeveloping and underfunding city programs for the sake of saving the state money? Now, that's not formally a direct conflict for members of this board, but for myself and for my neighbors whose tax dollars directly fund the state or the county and the city, it is quite a conflict and it's quite concerning. It's clear to me, it's clear to my Republican friends, Democrat friends, independent and disenfranchised friends and colleagues that the governor, Pete Ricketts, does not really care about the city of Omaha. It's an afterthought to him. It's beyond me how this board is willing to stand idly by and pretend as though they bear no responsibility to protect the best interests of their constituents against a malignant apathy of the governor's office because of an unsubstantial bureaucratic distinction. I humbly urge the members of this board to fully and contextually reassess their individual and political responsibilities to their constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Will. Would anybody else like to address this group? Dan.
Dan Kinsella again. I appreciate the open discussion and perspective that was provided. There was some information that I think we learned, and I just wanted to let you know that we'll go back and have discussion with this perspective in mind, and make sure that we are the right fit to assist as articulated. I do need to talk to my colleagues and just be sure, given the length and the nature of the discussion.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Further questions or comments? Commissioner Boyle.
After.
Okay, Commissioner Boyle.
I'd like to ask Mr. Costello to take a look at the what I quoted in here. It's on the, I don't know what page it's on, but it talks about the state participating with counties and cities and so forth. And particularly, and I am very much concerned about the city meeting its obligations, because it will affect us as not only the citizens, but also as the governmental agencies that operating. We do different things than the city, but I really want to see the city get everything that it possibly can. And sometimes I think what happens is the percentage ought to be quite a bit different. 50-50 with the state is not equitable at all. But if you look at that, what I cited, it looks to me like we can do other things. And I know that you're involved in reporting, which is essential. I'm really pleased. I think you and Kathy, I'm very happy you're going to be doing this for us. I think we need to. But like I said, I do want to see some minority participation somewhere, because I think particularly now, we have an obligation to be much more sensitive to that. So we'll figure that out. But thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. Teresa.
Teresa York, Douglas County Attorney's Office. If I may, I just thought I'd highlight a few points that's been provided in the guidance given by the U.S. Department of the Treasury related to compliance. And I would direct this board's attention to the guidance issued on April 22nd, 2020. It clearly states that CARES Act money can only be spent if a three-part test is met. And the test is, it has to be a necessary expenditure incurred due to COVID. That's the first one. The second one, it's not accounted for in your budget already. And the third one is you spend the money between March 1 and December 30th. The U.S. Department of Treasury has gone ahead and promulgated some guidance to kind of explain to us what that means. And I will direct the board's attention to the guidance frequently asked questions dated May 28th, 2020. It specifically directs CARES Act recipients that they have to keep documentation of their expenditures. It says that they are to keep records sufficient to demonstrate that the amount of funds and payments made were in accordance with the CARES Act. So we need to have a record-keeping process. And I think that Deloitte, in the task orders that I've read, is going to assist the county with that. And then I would also direct this board to that same May 28th guidance, and specifically questions and answers 47 through 53. Question 47, the question related to whether the CARES Act money is considered to be a grant. It is not. The answer is no, it is not considered to be a grant. And then going on thereafter, it talks about federal statutes that the use of the CARES Act must comply with. Question 48 talks about whether it must comply with the Single Audit Act, and the answer is yes, it must. Question 49 talks about whether it must conform with the uniform guidance in 2 CFR Part 200. The answer is yes. And so there are some federal statutes that are in play that will need to be complied with and will need to be anticipated for any audit. And so I simply wanted to highlight some of those factors in relation to compliance in using CARES Act money.
And thank you for that. I would, as long as we're still in this part of the budget, ask as a point of personal privilege that I be allowed to change my vote on item G. This is a federal government, local government agreement regarding, I think, putting juveniles in the youth center, which I intended to vote no on. And so I would ask the boards, as long as we're still on this part of the agenda, just to allow me to change my vote on that particular item on the consent agenda from yes to no. I think that's allowed under the rules. I don't believe we'll change the outcome of the vote.
County Clerk Dan Esch. I mean, yeah, it's not, at this point, according to our rules, we have to have a commissioner on the prevailing side, which you are doing, I guess, make a motion to reconsider if it's made during the same meeting. So we've already passed since we already voted on the item, now we have to make a motion to reconsider the item.
Just very briefly, I would ask that I be allowed to
Well,
reconsider.
I mean, before I turn it over, you can't do that now in the middle of a motion. That would have to be taken after action is completed on the
Okay,
floor.
well, I want to do it while we're still in the consent agenda, though.
Well, but you can't do it on this item. The
That's
item,
fine.
we have a item in the middle of a motion has.
Very good. We will come back to that.
Thank you, okay.
Okay. Then are we ready to vote? All right, I would call for the vote, please.
I vote yes.
Motion passes. Commissioner Kavanaugh voting no, all other commissioners voting yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh, what is it?
On item G, down on the consent agenda, the federal government or local government established this agreement that allows the United States Marshals Service or other authorized agency user, as noted in block number 18 on page 1, to house federal detainees with the local government, the Douglas County Youth Center, 1301 South 41st Street. I'm against that. Housing federal, I presume, youth detainees in our youth center. So I would ask leave to make my vote reflect that and change it from yes to no.
So
Chair Duda,
go ahead.
if I may. Dan Esch correctly stated the rule, and I would direct this board's attention to Rule 6 in your own rules that you adopt every January. And so you can correct by immediate notification if the board hasn't moved on to the next item, but they had. And so the next one is, if you've moved on to the next item, have a commissioner on the prevailing side make a motion to reconsider, but you voted on the prevailing side accidentally, Commissioner
would so
Kavanaugh.
move
So
then.
you could make the motion
right.
yourself, and then you just need a second to do the reconsider to alter your vote.
Thank you. I so move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reconsider item 2G. Commissioner Boyle.
There's a section, I'm really happy this was brought up because I skimmed this quickly and didn't discover this. I'm opposed to one of the sections here. It's the one with the last whereas. At all times, the federal government shall have access to the facility and to the federal detainees housed there, and to all records pertaining to this agreement, including financial records for a period going back 3 years to the date of the request by the federal government. We have, years ago, had a request from ICE to come into our adult facility, and I received a phone call from the previous director and asked me what he should do. And I said they should be denied access. We can give them lots of information about who's there, when somebody gets out. We do that, as a matter of fact, every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day at our adult facility. I do not think it's appropriate for these agents to be coming into our facility. It has earned us the title of a sanctuary county, which I say is, as far as I'm concerned, is a proud status. We need to remove that last whereas. I'm very sorry that I didn't see that, but they cannot have access to the building. If they need to meet with and talk to the detainees, they need to do it as any other agency does, and we're not going to have them coming in any time to talk to these children, and particularly it's young people, so it really is a serious matter because they're minors. So I really think we need to either take that back out, and we need to reconsider this sometime later, but we need to get that last whereas out of there. I don't have, these children are going to be housed somewhere, and it's just as well if they're from this area that they be housed someplace that they're close to relatives. And the other good advantage to having them housed at this facility, as much as no one wants to, I don't want to see them imprisoned, is that we have a Mexican consulate who is extremely, we are in constant contact with her. Anytime there's a death or an injury or anything like that, she helps us contact families and so forth. So I am for it happening here in Douglas County, but I don't want that last whereas. What do we do about this, legal counsel? Do we bring this act next week and take that whereas off, or what do we do? Discuss it. I think it's a bad precedent.
Teresa York, County Attorney's Office. So the motion on the floor that has a first and a second is to bring the item back up to reconsider.
Yeah.
And so I think you'd need to vote on that first. Then you will have the original item back before you, and then the board could decide whether they wanted to vote on it again to correct a misvote, or I suppose since it's now the item is back before the body itself, you could do a motion to lay it over. But I think the first step is to get it back before the body and to act on the motion to reconsider.
Okay, and I think maybe we should lay it over, and then we can decide as a body whether we want that in there or not, but I think it's a serious precedent that's not good for the children. Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh, for bringing that back. I didn't realize that was in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. Which section exactly?
It's the last whereas. At all times, the federal government shall have access to the facility and to federal detainees housed there. That's not a good thing. We don't allow that with adults.
The motion before us is reconsideration of item 2G. If there are no further comments to the reconsideration motion, I would call for the vote.
So motion by Commissioner Kavanaugh, second by Commissioner Boyle.
I vote yes.
Motion passes. Commissioner Duda voting no, other commissioners voting yes.
Okay, so we have item G before us again for consideration.
I'd make a motion that we lay this over for 1 week, or if we're not meeting, then the week after that.
We do meet next week.
Okay, then lay it over for next week, and we can have a time to discuss that and get this out, that whereas out of there, possibly.
Okay, is there a second? Motion dies for, yes. All right.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you, Ms. Borgerson.
So the motion and second before us is to lay item 2G over for 1 week. Comments or questions to that motion?
I would just point out that perhaps when we do have this brought up again, presuming the motion goes forward, I'm going to support it, that we get kind of some background on the fiscal impact, how many juveniles are we talking about? Where are they coming from? Why is this coming up now? And what would be the fiscal impact to the county if this were to go forward?
May I ask a question?
Commissioner?
Which commissioner is in charge of dealing with the youth center? Do we know? You are? Okay. Well, we'll probably rely on you to help us get the information if you would, but that'd be great. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers.
Okay. All right. Could we please vote?
I vote yes.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Borgeson to lay over. And just to add to the record, citizen Ricky Fulton did submit a comment in opposition to this item.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, what did you say?
A citizen submitted a comment to me in opposition to this item, which was Ricky Fulton. And motion passes to lay over, all commissioners voting yes.
Thank you all very much. We'll talk.
Thank you. Citizen comments. Anybody who wish to address this group on anything not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to do so.
Avenue, Omaha. Quick question, since it's no longer on the agenda, may I comment on the last item without being removed? I just want to ask, what the hell is that about? The way that reads makes me think of the old shell game. Going to get that new building one way or another. I don't think I want detainees moved in with the youth out there. And I'm a citizen taxpayer. On to the next item. I will submit this to you when I'm done, excuse me. I need it for reference. And I want to compliment you. You've got equipment working very well today. I can hear everybody. I don't know whether everybody can see me like they did last week. We don't have anybody sitting behind me to protest and be put out there on the Facebook internet scene. And I don't think that is probably proper. Yes, it's all out in the public now, but I'll just comment it on real quickly because it's right here. But there was a young man there that was supposedly an organizer for a political candidate. That political candidate took a screenshot, supposedly, of me, and he's sitting right behind me. But of course, I didn't know that's what happened. I thought maybe somebody sitting right up there took it. And then they used it for their political comments. There should be a rule about that. The next item, we're talking about community leaders and nonprofits. In the last couple of weeks down here, a lot of community leaders have had their input, but there's been a lot of activists that had their input. Part of what I'm delivering to you today is to answer both those types. The World Herald likes to print all these series of articles by Preston Love, rightfully so, but do they print articles from the citizens? I don't think so. Levance Dennis Williams got to comment publicly on this venture last week, as well as submitting it by mail, and she had some pretty good comments. I'm not a community leader. I don't get put in the World Herald. But a lot of the people that rose up and spoke, and they had their antics going on behind the scenes back here for the cameras to see with their fists in the air. A lot of them are young kids that didn't understand what a fist in the air is. Well, here's some facts about the derivation of that type of behavior. When I made a comment about that as a communist fist, a communist Marxist sign, oh, well, what the hell is that about? That old white guy doesn't know what he's talking about? I'm afraid I do. I was here a long time before he was. That's all I'm going to say. It's all here. Some of it was discussed on the radio by somebody else, not me. But I'd like to submit it for the record as a form of protest. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Would anybody else like to speak to this group at this time?
Larry. Luis Jimenez, 3306 Bird Street. Can I get this on? I want to show you guys a picture of the fist in the air. It's a protest sign I made. It says, "Stop killing us. Justice for James. Stop killing us."
Luis, could you speak into the mic, please?
Oh.
Thank you.
It says, "Stop killing us. Justice for James." And you can see some figures of protesters towards the top. This is a human gesture here. Stop killing us as humans, not as communists. The rest of my comments, I'd like to direct to the county clerk or whoever's providing information. I'm trying to follow the CARES Act as best as I can. And one of the things I've done, that I do, is go on your website, the county clerk's website, and it's kind of hard to navigate or find anything that summarizes or links to the CARES Act funding. So if I can get some direction, because I do want to share this information, I want it to be correct.
Would you like to respond?
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Luis. Anybody else wishing to address this group? Okay, thank you. The next item is a presentation, simply discussion, and this is going to be on every week, I expect, for the rest of the year, because there's going to be so much going on every week for the rest of the year. Commissioner Borgeson, I'll give you the floor for a minute.
Well, I just wanted to comment on what we're hoping to get launched fairly quickly is that piece on our website with all of the information about the CARES Act. And then eventually when we approve what the disbursements will be, what those will be as well. But that will all be on our website and hopefully soon.
Thank you, Commissioner Borgeson.
Website or the county
Commissioner, well, the counties.
The county website.
County website.
Thank you. A brief update. We have had a number of discussions. I've never gone to Lincoln. I've never had a private meeting with the governor, but we've had a number of phone conversations, and now we are bringing in our staff as well. I mean, the last one included Patrick and Joe Lorenz, along with their budget director, as we compare notes. And this much I will say regarding the city of Omaha and their request. I have been outspoken from the get-go that I view the city of Omaha as a vital partner, and I want to give them everything that they're due. We have enough in our pot that we can do that, and I believe that we are. That's exactly the tact that I believe we are taking. Is my intention is, I am hopeful this board will grant Omaha 100% of their qualifying expenses. And then obviously we will split that 50-50 with the state, so we only bear half the responsibility. But the question becomes, what's qualifying expenses when their figures jumped up so dramatically? You know, they were running at about $5 million a month, and then they heard the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin give some guidance that seemed to be in conflict with their own written guidelines. And that's where we have come to a difference of opinions with the city of Omaha about what are qualified expenses. When they put in the entire payroll for their fire and police departments, portions of the salaries of all of their staff, even the city council staff, that does not pass the test of having not been in their budget. Now, they can say, but Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said that we've got a little bit of flexibility here, that we can make certain presumptions, and that worries me. But this is all things that are being said verbally versus the guidelines. Now, 5 years from now, when the auditors come back and say, okay, day of reckoning, we want to make sure everything you did was right. Obviously, I'm not going to be here, but I don't want Joe Lorenz or anybody else to have to say, well, we base this on what Mnuchin said verbally. We recognize it was not consistent with the guidelines. We have to take the guidelines as our final word. We have to go with the written guidelines. I am sorry that the city of Omaha is interpreting things so very differently now, when their figures shot up so dramatically, about fivefold, when they decided they can do all of this. And of course, we all know we can't use it for revenue loss. So I feel bad getting messages and things from people that say, well, give Omaha all the money they're due. I have every intention of doing that. The question is, how much are they really due? How much really goes along with the guidelines? We are not going to be able to make them whole. We have no intention, nor is the fund intended to be used that way. So I just want to lay out for the record, I am trying to be as supportive of Omaha as we can, and my intention is to cover all of their qualified expenses. We just have a pretty big difference of opinion about what that means to qualify. So that's my update. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thanks for that. Here's just an idea relative to the city's ask, any city in Douglas County's ask, and you know, following up on, I agree with you, we want to meet 100% of their ask. We could, I think, execute a hold harmless agreement with the city of Omaha, city of Ralston, and it would say, you know, we will honor your request, but if the federal government sometime in the future says that wasn't a qualified expense, you're going to pay us back. You're going to foot the bill for that. That's a common, I think, legal procedure in many transactions. And I think that it would allow us to do the right thing by the cities in Douglas County relative to their best position to make the decisions on what their needs are. But if they don't comport, and I'm sure that they have smart people there, like we have smart people here looking at these regulations, then the contracts say we will be held harmless and they will have to pay back whatever the federal government, in the event that they do say is not a qualified expense, says has to be paid back. I just put that out there because we keep coming up with this, what's qualified and what's not qualified, and reasonable people can disagree. But a hold harmless agreement is a common legal technique used throughout America for exactly these types of situations. And rather than second guess, you know, what the city is saying they are qualified for, any city, you know, Ralston, Valley, Omaha, Bennington, Waterloo, and what we say they are, that we just insert that in there. I, you know, would again make the motion that we institute at least rent support today. We're not talking about money because the $50 million that we appropriated last week for CARES funding is already appropriated. And so all we're doing is dedicating a portion of that, like I think Commissioner Boyle got dedicated for PPEs for South Omaha, much needed. And, you know, those are, again, out of the $50 million that's just undedicated. I have the resolution here, and it just says for CARES CARES Act funding. So take a portion of that. I would suggest that we start with $1 million and put that into rent support through the General Assistance Office with their staff charged with doing the regulations that would allow for renter's assistance. I think that a reasonable amount would be $1,000 a month capped, and a reasonable qualification would be that someone would be on unemployment insurance. But those are not parts of the motion. It's just that we do $1 million to rent assistance through general assistance today.
Claire, may I speak?
After Commissioner Borgeson. She says, go ahead, Commissioner Kraft.
Yes. Regarding hold harmless agreements are not infallible. If I've read over the years about many hold harmless agreements that really weren't worth the paper they were written on, because a change in administration, change in one city council, for example, one county board cannot obligate the next county board. For example, anything we do can be undone. So a hold harmless would have to be agreed to by the city council, but one city council cannot obligate the next. So I don't put my faith in the hold harmless agreement. The other is the Open Meetings Act and allocation and debate, for example, of the rent assistance. I'm all for that, but let's put that on the agenda instead of doing it on the fly. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. And I will say that certainly we will be including the hold harmless parts of the agreement. I mean, we've discussed that with the county attorney, and yes, those will be in there. Commissioner Borgeson.
I just want to echo, thank you, Mr. Chair, what Commissioner Kraft said, because yes, we will have that. In fact, I've sent a sample of it. I was on a call the other day and someone said that this is what they did, and I asked for a sample and I gave it to staff. But again, those hold harmless are only so good. They can come back and say, sorry, I don't have the money. And at the end of the day, the law says the county is responsible, and the federal government's going to look at the county to give that money back. So that's just, well, not that that was going to happen. It's just that that's what we have to be careful for. Be careful of.
Well, and even if we do have, and we will have some kind of hold harmless clause in the agreements, but we got to follow the guidelines. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that I'm not going to go to the city of Omaha and tell us how much you want and whether or not you think it complies with the guidelines. I want to know if I think it complies with the guidelines, because if it doesn't, I'm not approving it. That simple.
And again, that was, I mean, I, for one, want to help not only the city of Omaha, but every city within Douglas County. Everyone that comes for assistance, as long as it is eligible and we have documentation. I would ask, again, this piecemealing of this disbursement of these funds is not a good idea. I would ask that if the rent assistance is one of the priority areas that the county board members agree to move forward on, which again, Joe brought kind of that flow sheet with the boxes of where we thought what the categories were. I think we need to put that back on the agenda for approval. If someone wants to add to it, take something off, whatever. But I really would ask, because I'm for helping too, as long as they're eligible. I mean, and we just say, you know, Larry comes up to the podium and says, I need help with rent next month. And we say, well, here, you can have $1,000. How are we documenting that? And it's not a flippant thing. It's just that we have to have the documentation. We have to make sure that they fit that category that we've prioritized. And so what I would ask, it's only one more week. This is going to be on every week, that we have Joe bring back his chart and we spend the time to discuss the categories and decide whether or not those are our priority areas in which this board agrees to move forward with. To me, that makes much more sense than just this piecemealing.
And Commissioner, just to the idea of rental assistance, and I've talked to Melissa about this, and we did talk about it at the committee meeting. If we're going to go in the direction, because right now, the staff, what they do is they provide rental assistance to those who qualify under the GA guidelines. So if we want to create another system to do it for those who don't necessarily qualify for the GA guidelines, for example, they're getting unemployment funds. She does not believe currently she has the staff to do that. She is in the process of hiring another staff person, but that person has not been hired yet. She would prefer that if we did that through GA, that GA would contract with one or more of the nonprofits that she already works with, and have those nonprofits actually do the dispensing of the rental assistance, with GA providing the kind of the oversight or being the core for the county on doing that. So it's definitely something that should be done if it's done appropriately, and if GA has the capacity to do that, to do it.
Thank you. Commissioner Borges.
But there are in the community probably 8, 10 organizations that do this as well. So again, we just have to have the process in place, and we have to make sure the documentation is there to make sure that the person who's receiving it is eligible to receive it.
Thank you. Further comments? Commissioner Boyle?
I understand what Commissioner Kavanaugh is saying, and after I made my presentation, if you want to call it that, on masks, I understand that. The masks will be on the agenda next week, so there are processes, and I understand the frustrations and the need for it and the qualifications. My God, Melissa's a terrific employee and a wonderful person. She's another bleeding heart, which is wonderful to have her in that kind of a position. I agree with Commissioner Borgeson that we do need to get some formality to it. So while I support and will, if I didn't already, I'd second Commissioner Kavanaugh's motion, but I think it's going to fail, and what we'll do is probably the more orderly thing that, and that includes my masks for next week, and get those prioritized. I think that's probably the way to go. And there are all these agencies out there that do it already, and we don't need to, together incorporate it, and a whole bunch of them are so good at it. And anyway, so that's, if there's not a second to Mr. Kavanaugh's, I kind of got distracted, but I'll second his motion to do that. Emergency renting, I think it's really important, and it certainly qualifies. There's no doubt about that at all. So that's where I am. I agree.
The motion before us is.
So, Teresa, you're at County Attorney's Office, may I?
Please.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is what, if I may ask?
The motion is to take $1 million from the $50 million appropriated last week for CARES funding and dedicate that to the General Assistance Department to provide renter's assistance.
Okay, so this item is not on the agenda. It raises an open meetings issue. There has been no notice given to the public regarding this item, and so this item should not be taken up by the board today. This particular CARES Act item, as it is on the board at this time, is for discussion only. It has no attached motions for action, and so I believe that this would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act for you to go forward with it.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to object to that. Following up on what Commissioner Boyle indicated relative to the mass, I'm comfortable with us putting this formally on the agenda for next week and formalize it, as Mr. Bloomingdale indicated, with our administrator at General Assistance relative to getting regulations in place. This isn't a huge rewrite. This is very, very specific use of our emergency powers, our existing renters assistance programs, and just making a couple of exceptions. And I would not object at all to using the facilities available in the community of people who, for instance, came before the Health and Human Services Committee in May and said that they would be willing to help us implement a general assistance program right now. It's just a matter of time is of the essence. And so if we must take a week to put all those in place, I would say let's do that. And if that's agreeable, I would be willing to withdraw the motion and we could go forward with that next week.
Seconder.
That's the correct approach. Thank you.
All right, motion has been withdrawn.
Enough leeway to discuss all these items and new items too, that, you know, that we don't want to be blocked by the open meetings law. We ought to have something on the agenda that says discussion slash action regarding CARES funding, something that's broad enough that we notify the citizens that we're.
Well, yeah, I would ask that we have on there specifically what we are seeking so the world knows ahead of time what actions we are considering.
Do we have to do the same with things we want to remove, like boilers? Do we have to list that too, that we're taking that off? That I want to, I don't think we ought to, but how far do we have to go in being specific?
Well, when you say you want to give something away next week, that's where I'd like us to be specific.
Okay.
How much money, through whom?
And who's gonna put that together?
You and our staff, I guess.
Talk to Karen.
Yeah, I mean, it's your motion, kind of falls to you to.
Yes, well, as long as it's clear that we're talking about $1 million for renter's assistance, for CARES relief, and whatever the PPE language that Commissioner Boyle is seeking, just specific enough to meet the legal requirements pointed out by council. That's pretty simple.
Okay, thank you. All right, Luis, I'm sorry. Would you like to speak?
Yes, sir. 3306 Birch Street. The feds gave us this money. It's taxpayers' money to help out during the pandemic and expenses secured. It's on the agenda. The discussion is on the agenda. The CARES Act is on the agenda. You've had this money for, I don't know how many weeks. I heard 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And we don't want to get bogged down. We want to tackle these issues. So I'm just still confused why the CARES Act is on your agenda under presentation. Why hasn't the manifold of committees brought this item to their committees like Health and Human Services, Administrative Services, to look at the CARES Act funding? I think that would be an appropriate place for it. It would help with business on a weekly basis if your various committees were looking at the CARES Act funding and giving recommendations so that we don't have to deal with the simpleton approach of the county attorney regarding the Open Meetings Act. So I heard that you want to formalize the spreadsheet, which is this one here. This one right here. I took a picture of it. It's got 4 columns. There's allotments already. So I appreciate you, Commissioner Borgensen, wanting to formalize this further. But that would be my suggestion, to put either the funding consideration in one of your committees, or start allocating those columns into your committees. For example, the rent assistance, can it go under Health and Human Services so you can have discussions and be ready to act? Because it is first come, first served, as I understand it, as to who's going to get funding if they qualify. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Anybody else care to comment? Commissioner Boyle.
I'm very sorry. I did pass out a grant announcement form, it's very simple. It's what we use for the South Omaha grants. And it's really pretty clear about, this is for the applicants that would be for the CARES Act. And it's not a perfect form, it has to be totally redone, but it does not require a certified accountant's report on the front, because these organizations can't afford it, and I don't think the ones that are applying can do the same. But what it does lay out what they intend to do with the money and what their status is and showing us and proving to their 501c3 status, all the rest of it. So I'd like you to consider this being I did send it out to you through Karen, I believe, just as a form that we can get in place maybe by next week sometime if we have it, or 2 weeks from now, something like that, okay?
Thank you.
And the other thing I want to mention is the hold harmless. It may be worthless, but I think if it's clear that you have language in there that, this would not be the language, but that's what the wordsmith, the attorney does. If feds balk, we will reimburse you. It just has to be clear language that we can enforce. And the city needs, I told the mayor that, as a matter of fact, that all these grants, all this money, not grants, but gifts, and need to be under, and we need to have a hold harmless that if the feds say this isn't eligible, that the organization has to step up. And I don't know if they have the money or not, but we need it, I think.
Thank you.
Just real quick on that last point that
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Boyle made. It is also common practice that people in that position in the private sector would be required to post bonds so that they could perform on a hold harmless clause in a contract. This is kind of a backup to allow for payment in the event that the payments from CARES were disallowed. Just an idea.
All right. I'm not sure how that works with giving out PPE and all. I mean, are we going to ask all the nonprofits to put a bond up before we give them any money? Well, but these are the processes that we will have to work out and come back with. Thank you all for that. We will move on to committees. I'm not seeing much there. Anybody have anything they want to be reporting for their committees?
I just note that the clerk has forwarded to Deloitte folks the minutes of the Health and Human Services Committee held, I believe, May 28th, and that we will be holding a follow-up hearing, I think later this month, regarding, again, renter's assistance, but we're also going to look into utilities assistance, food assistance, medical healthcare assistance as well, using our good people at General Assistance.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may?
Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, the Douglas County Fair will be held this year, except it's going to be what we call a show and go. It's not something where we're going to have static exhibits this year. We're not going to have booths. It's strictly going to be people bring in their trailers, show their animals for judge, then load out the animals and they leave. It's not something where we will have participant viewing because of the COVID issues and guidelines put out by the State Agricultural Society. So I hope to have somebody give a report on this next week or the meeting after that. And I will have it on the agenda when I can.
Thank you,
But it is
Commissioner.
taking place. And it will be, and I will have a further report on it. Thank you.
Appreciate your attention to that. Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Boyle?
Commissioner Kraft, is the fair at your house? Is that what I heard? Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to mention on the Finance Committee that I've talked to PJ and also Joe, but we're going to be postponing it somewhat so that we're prepared to see what the revenue is coming in, which is just one of the things that's very cautious, and that's Joe's idea, and that's a very good one. I do want to say that the conversations that PJ and I have had, and mostly me, is that we need to, I know we have limited control over elected officials, but I think we need to ask those that are not in situations like corrections or the health center or the juvenile center that additional employees really need to be scrutinized. This is not a time to be expanding services, and even if a person retires, we need to be looking at whether or not we actually need to fill it immediately, that sort of thing. So we're going to be asking everyone, departments and also elected officials, to try to do that, to watch the number of employees. And this sort of thing that we're in financially is not a good time to be cutting services either. This is when we really need to deliver things. So it's kind of a tightrope, but I wanted to just mention that.
Thank you. Anything else? I see one of our commissioners just left. We do have need for an executive session today for legal matters and negotiation. Okay.
I believe it's just legal matters, no negotiations.
I added.
Oh, you did?
negotiation.
Okay. Far be it from me to argue with you.
I would entertain a motion to go into executive session. Is there a second? Second. All right, motion and a second to go into executive session for legal matters and negotiations. Could we please vote?
I vote yes.
As always, I will announce that when we come out of executive session, the only action contemplated will be adjournment.
Motion passes. The motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Rogers. All present voting yes. Commissioners Morgan and Kavanaugh are absent.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Yep. Meeting adjourned at 12 noon sharp.